the Black Death, 1347. A chill wind whispered across the Mediterranean, carrying more than just the scent of the sea in the autumn of 1347. It carried an invisible terror, a silent predator that would soon feast upon a continent. From the bustling docks of Messina, Sicily, to the quietest hamlets of England, a shadow began to fall, unprecedented in its scope and ferocity. This was not a foe that could be met with sword or shield. It was an unseen menace, a microscopic assassin that would rewrite the destiny of Europe. The culprit was an insidious bacterium, Yersinia pestis, a name unknown to the terrified populations of the 14th century. Its arrival marked the beginning of a 4-year cataclysm, from 1347 to 1351, a period when the very fabric of European civilization would be stretched to its breaking point. Chroniclers of the era, like Gabriel de Mussi, would later attempt to describe the horror that consumed their world, a world where between 30 and 50% of the population, an estimated 25 to 50 million souls, would simply vanish. The plague's journey into Europe began with the unsuspecting arrival of Genoese trading ships in Messina, Sicily, in October 1347. These vessels, laden with exotic goods from the east, also carried an unwelcome cargo, black rats, infested with fleas that harbored the deadly Yersinia pestis. The docks, usually a vibrant hub of commerce, quickly became a gateway for death. Within weeks, the bustling Sicilian port was a city of the dying, its streets filled with the cries of the afflicted. From Sicily, the relentless wildfire of contagion ignited across the continent. By January 1348, the plague had reached Marseille, France, brought by merchant ships. It swept through the major port cities of Italy, devastating Pisa and Venice by early 1348. The Florentine chronicler Giovanni Boccaccio would later recount the horrific scenes in Florence during the spring of 1348, describing how the city, once a jewel of the Renaissance, became a charnel house where the dead outnumbered the living. The plague marched inexorably northward and westward. Paris, a vibrant center of learning and culture, found itself under siege by the summer of 1348. England felt the first icy grip of the pestilence in autumn 1348, with Bristol and then London becoming overwhelmed. The Middle East suffered simultaneously. The Arab scholar Ibn al-Wardi documented the plague's devastating sweep through Syria and Egypt in 1348, noting its arrival in Cairo, a city that would lose a substantial portion of its population. The human body, once infected, became a battleground where the odds were overwhelmingly stacked against life. Victims often experienced a swift and agonizing demise, frequently succumbing within a single week of symptom onset. This rapid progression of the disease left little time for solace or farewells, plunging entire families into despair across towns like Siena, Italy in 1348. The defining characteristic of the bubonic plague was the appearance of agonizingly swollen lymph nodes, known as buboes. These grotesque swellings, often the size of an apple or an egg, typically erupted in the groin or armpits, sometimes on the neck. They were intensely painful, a visible manifestation of the internal torment. The English chronicler Henry Knighton described the terror of seeing these swellings appear, knowing what fate they foretold in Leicestershire in 1349. Beyond the buboes, the infected suffered a litany of other horrific symptoms. High fevers racked the body, often accompanied by debilitating fatigue. Violent vomiting purged the stomach, while splitting headaches pounded within the skull. Delirium often set in, stripping victims of their last vestiges of dignity and reason. From the crowded tenements of Genoa in 1347 to the rural farms of Saxony in 1349, the suffering was uniform, a testament to the indiscriminate nature of the unseen menace. This swift, horrible death, inflicted by an invisible killer, painted a picture of utter helplessness. Across Europe, from the Spanish kingdoms in 1348 to the Scandinavian countries by 1350, people died in their beds, in the streets, and even in the fields. The speed and severity of the illness meant that entire households could be wiped out in a matter of days, leaving behind only silence and the chilling evidence of their suffering. The scale of mortality was truly catastrophic, an unprecedented depopulation of the European continent. Between 1347 and 1351, the plague claimed 30 to 50% of Europe's population. This grim tally equated to an estimated 25 to 50 million lives extinguished in just 4 years, a number that dwarfed any previous disaster in recorded history. In some regions like Tuscany, Italy, and parts of France, local records indicate mortality rates soared to 60 or even 70% within specific communities during 1348. The sheer volume of the dead overwhelmed all existing systems for burial. In cities like London during 1349 and Florence in 1348, the dead were too numerous to receive individual burials or even proper religious rites. Mass graves became a grim necessity. Hastily dug pits where bodies were piled indiscriminately, sometimes hundreds at a time. The East Smithfield burial ground in London, for instance, became one such grim monument. Its layers of skeletal remains a stark reminder of the immense human toll. The dead were often abandoned, left in their homes or on the streets, as the living fled in terror or were too weak to perform the last rites. The horrifying accounts from Avignon, France, in 1348 describe how the Pope himself had to consecrate the Rhône River as a burial site, as the local cemeteries could no longer contain the corpses. This desperate measure underscored the profound disruption to even the most sacred customs. The Black Death did not merely claim lives, it shattered societies. The profound disruption to daily life was immediate and widespread. Markets ceased to function, fields lay fallow, and workshops fell silent. In towns like Norwich, England in 1349 and Strasbourg, Germany in 1348, entire villages were abandoned, their inhabitants either dead or having fled in a desperate attempt to outrun the pestilence. Societal structures, built over centuries, began to unravel. The traditional hierarchies of feudalism buckled under the weight of such immense loss. Labor shortages became acute, as there were simply not enough people left alive to farm the land or ply the trades. This economic upheaval, particularly evident in the agricultural regions of France and the Low Countries by 1350, led to wage increases for survivors, a significant shift in the balance of power between lord and peasant. The breakdown of order was pervasive. Laws went unenforced, as magistrates and constables died or deserted their posts. Families, once the bedrock of medieval society, fractured under the strain. Parents abandoned sick children, and children abandoned sick parents, driven by an overwhelming fear of contagion. Giovanni Boccaccio, observing Florence in 1348, noted how brothers abandoned brothers and wives their husbands, as the instinct for self-preservation superseded all other bonds. Amidst this chaos, an overwhelming helplessness gripped the survivors. The medical knowledge of the 14th century offered no cure, no explanation beyond divine wrath or astrological misfortune. Physicians, like those in Venice in 1348, could do little more than observe and pray. The sheer terror of the invisible killer, which could strike anyone at any time, created a pervasive atmosphere of dread that permeated every aspect of existence, leaving an indelible scar on the collective psyche of Europe. The world of 1347, in many fundamental ways, ceased to exist by 1351.
Hi, I'm Yurii, the creator of this channel. If you enjoyed watching video, please like and subscribe. It really motivates me to create more content for you. See you in the next one.